everybody, it's Judy Clock, your Stampin' Up! Independent demonstrator here in Middletown, Virginia, coming to you tonight with a sneak peek of one of the new online exclusives that will be available starting on Tuesday, March 3rd. Tonight I'll be showing you the Garden Poetry Suite, and as soon as I saw this suite and the beautiful colors in it, I knew I had to get it. So let me switch out my cameras and we'll get started with tonight's video tutorial. All right, so there's a lot of different components to this suite. First off is the Paradise Garden bundle, which includes the Paradise Garden stamp set and the hybrid embossing folder, which includes an embossing folder and 13 coordinating dies. Let me show you those. Hold on one second while I grab some stuff from off to the side. So these are the 13 dies. So you've got the hybrid embossing folder and the die that will partially cut some of the leaves that it embosses. And you can use the embossing folder alone, just as an embossing folder, or you can use it with the die to do some of these partial cutouts. Then you've got 3 sentiment dies here, really pretty. And then you've got the dies that will cut out all of the stamped images. So the set includes some sentiments, a couple of, the flowers, and a little like background stamp. So that is the Paradise Garden bundle. Also included in the suite, let me just move this out of the way, is this beautiful Berry Burst sheer or shimmer ribbon rather. I don't know if you could see it, but it's got really pretty shimmery tint to it. That's 1/4 inch wide, ties beautifully. You know me, I am a ribbon snob. I like ribbons that tie well. Then you've got the garden epoxy dots, and as you can see, I've loved these. I've used almost all of them. They come in Flirty Flamingo, Berry Burst, Blueberry Bushel, Crushed Curry. And if you notice, some of them are solid and some of them have like a floral design on them. So it's kind of hard to see, but I'm almost out of those. I really like them. Then we've got this beautiful specialty foil paper. It comes in 3 colors. It comes in shaded spruce. Oh my goodness, let me turn off these lights. There we go. Shaded spruce. Hopefully that will reduce some of the glare. Berry Burst and Blueberry Bushel. And you get 2 sheets of each color for a total of 6 sheets. I don't think I have the light on above there. Then you have the Garden Poetry Designer Series paper. This is 12 by 12. And let me read you the colors because I forgot to write them. I did write them down, but I left them upstairs. So let me read you the colors in the paper. They have Berry Burst, Blackberry Bliss, Blueberry Bushel, Coastal Cabana, Crushed Curry, Flirty Flamingo, Night of Navy, Poppy Parade, Pumpkin Pie, and Shaded Spruce. And look at how pretty these are. You know me, I love my greens. Love this one. So I love how, excuse me, one side has that tie-dyed look and the other side has the floral images on it. So this is so pretty. Love that one. I used that sheet already, like one whole sheet already. And I said I used one whole sheet already because I'm going to show you what you can do with a 1-sheet wonder. And that is the Designer Series paper. So that is all the components that come in the Garden Poetry Suite. So I hope you like them. Now let me show you some cards that I've made with them. So this one uses that green specialty foil paper. Kind of hard to see it. I did emboss it with the embossing folder. Just use a piece of that pretty Designer Series paper, a little sentiment, and very simple, some linen thread, very simple card. So that is one that I made. Now this one, I've used the hybrid embossing folder, and you can see that it does partially cut. I used one of the sentiment shapes, cut out some Designer Series paper, and I used, excuse me, the Poppy Parade, Calypso Coral, and crushed curry color palette to create this card. This one is a fun fold. I love this one. This one cut out the middle. I cut out about 3 inches. This is about 1.25 inches, so that left us with a 3-inch piece. And you just flip it the other direction, and there you've got like a really cute little fun fold. And pro tip, I used blueberry bushel. This was first generation, this was second generation. So I stamped the flowers once. Without inking my stamp again, I stamped them again, and that gives you that lovely two-tone look. So if you've only got one ink pad, or just you don't have multiple colors, stamping off can really make it look like you have a lighter color. So that's just a little tip that you can have. Then this one I created, I'm going to On Stage in March, and I needed to do some fun folds for a swap. I'm in an organized swap. So I love this fun fold. It's so easy. It looks impressive. This was from my January fun fold tutorial. The measurements and all the cutting instructions are in my inspiration library, which is available exclusively to email subscribers. But how fun is that? So I thought we'd try to recreate this one today. So here we go. So I've got a piece of our blueberry bushel, right? Our standard 8.5 by 5.5. I scored it at 2 1/8 and 4 1/4. And that is going to form the basis of our card. Now we've got a couple of other components here. Let me just burnish this with my bone folder. So we're going to emboss this and put that on the inside. We've got 2 other pieces of blueberry bushel. One is going to sit on the inside in some basic white. It's going to form the inside of our card. And then we're going to do a little stamping, and I've already embossed this particular piece. I'm going to embellish it, and we're going to put that on the front of our card. You know what I forgot to cut? I forgot to cut my designer series paper. Hang on, let me get that done. Okay, I apologize. I was about 90% through this video when my husband called on the phone and interrupted everything. So I had to restart. So in restarting, I forgot to cut my designer series paper. But putting that aside for now, deep breath. Whew, let's go ahead and emboss this cardstock. Now, I wanted to show you how to use that partial die that will partially cut this out. Now, I'm not going to actually cut this piece, but I wanted to show you how to use it. So this actually fits in here, and you'll feel it when it fits in correctly. It kind of fits in around some of these images on the front of the embossing folder. You know it's the front because it's got the Stampin' Up logo. So I usually just kind of put that on there, put my paper on, try to make sure it's somewhat straight, and close it up. And then I run it through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And that will give you those partial die cuts. I don't want that on this particular piece. I don't want the partial die cut. So I'm going to remove that die. But I wanted to show you kind of how it works. And if I had left it in there, we would end up with a piece of paper that has these little partial die cut leaves on them. All right, let me bring up the Stampin' Cut and Emboss, and let's run this folder through. Remember, hinged end goes first. Okay, so we want to put our hinged end in first, and then just turn this and get it back out of our way. And there we have that beautifully embossed piece of cardstock. All right. So when I'm working, I like to get as many pieces out of the way as I can to get them off my work table. Because this is embossed, I usually use liquid glue because I find sometimes that the Stampin' Seal will actually rip the embossed cardstock, because once you emboss it, it sort of weakens the fibers of the paper a little bit. I mean, it doesn't make it, very weak, but they are not as strong as they were when it was not embossed. So it tends to tear more easily when you're using Stampin' Seal. Now I'm going to put this piece on the piece of blueberry bushel. That's going to be on the inside of our card. I don't really need to use liquid glue on this one, but I have it, and it tends to give you a little bit extra time when you want to kind of get this into place. Great for newbies because like it's a little bit more forgiving than Stampin' Seal. Once you've got the Stampin' Seal, and I prefer Stampin' Seal Plus. I think Stampin' Seal regular is garbage. That's just my opinion. Stampin' Seal Plus is much better. Okay. I know it's a little bit more costly, but it's worth it because your stuff isn't going to be falling apart on you. Okay, so that is that. Now we've got our 2 pieces of designer series paper. Now I cut this down from one piece that was 4 inches wide by 5 1/4 inches long, and I cut it. So I want to place it so that those cut parts marry up, and that does not look like it marries up. This looks like it marries up. So I want to make sure that I put it, and I'm probably the only one who would ever notice, but that's what I like to do. It's my card. I can do it that way if I want. Just joking with you. I don't know why this camera seems to move. There we go. Much better. I must have moved it. All right. So again, I'm just going to use a little bit of liquid glue because it gives us that little bit of extra time. So one is going to go to the left of that 2 1/8 of an inch score line. And one is going to go between our 2 score lines. Okay, so this piece actually will end up being on the inside of the card when it's closed. But when you open it, it will just be that extra little pretty pop on the inside. All right, now we've got that. Now, let's go and do some stamping. So I have a piece of our basic white. This piece will eventually come and fit over the bottom of it. That's okay. I'm going to stamp in Berry Burst, that out of the way, Blueberry Bushel, and Shaded Spruce. So I'm going to stamp the larger flower in our Berry Burst. I'm just going to stamp a random pattern. Some will be on, some will be off. And since I don't really know exactly where that other piece is going, I'm just going to stamp them all over. I'm going to come in with our little blue flower. Okay, that may or may not show up. And then I'm going to come in with some green leaves. Again, these will be somewhat off the oh no, I knew that was going to happen. I had too many open. Okay, I gotta clean it off real quick. That's what happens when you have multiple ink pads open and you are not really paying attention. So let me make sure this isn't even really that wet. Hang on. I have like 7 of these chamois. You know, I need them for when I do classes, and invariably I pick up the one that is the driest. There we go. This one's actually, I need to wash these again. I throw mine in a netted bag and wash them with like a load of towels or rags. I just find that that works really well. So if you have chamois and you want to give them a nice deep clean, go ahead and throw them in with your towels or rags and get them really, really clean. And I'm just, like I said, I'm just sort of, okay, some of these I want to maybe just use the leaves and not necessarily the stem. Okay, I'm going to try to ink that up, and ooh, that looks pretty good. Stick that there. And maybe one more coming up here. All right, I think that's enough. All right, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to add our embossed piece of blueberry bushel to the bottom half of this little stamped piece of basic white. I just kind of do that to make sure I get my edges somewhat even. We'll see. Now I'm going to come in with a piece of our Berry Burst ribbon. Okay, and I want to cut this to about 4 inches. And I'm going to wrap this around right where the blue, they kind of meet, right over that seam, to just kind of hide the seam a little bit. And I'm going to add some tape, just some regular old Scotch tape, cellophane tape, whatever you want to call it. Just some regular old tape. And I'm going to wrap it around. I want to make sure it's straight. So I'm going to kind of look to make sure it's straight. Okay, here we go. All right, now let's go ahead and add this to our piece of a blueberry bushel. Like, well, what did I do with my glue? I put it away. Yeah, whew, what a day. My husband's on his way to Leesburg to pick up our new foster puppy. Atlas will be coming to live with us for a little bit until he finds his forever home. He is a 9-month-old lab mix puppy. So we're excited to help Atlas transition from shelter to a loving home. And that's what we're up to. All right, so then I've die cut the hexagon sentiment label. Is that a hexagon? I think it's a hexagon. I'm going to stamp this in Berry Burst. Get that out of the way. I try to get some of this stuff out of the way and keep my desk somewhat neat. But it's like a never-ending battle, right? Okay. Now I want to add a little bit around the edges. So I'm going to come in here with my dauber. And I still have kind of a lot of color on it. So I'm just going to add a little bit of light blueberry bushel around the edges of this sentiment label. And again, this is just an optional little thing I like to do sometimes. It just makes the white look a little less stark. All right, we're going to go ahead and pop this up on dimensionals, right kind of in the center of our little card front. Now I want to put these a little bit towards the top and bottom because I don't want it to catch on the ribbon, because then it really won't stick. So I've got one on the bottom, and I think I have like 2 on the top. And hopefully when I place it, it will stick and go kind of like those dimensionals will go right in between the ribbon. So there we go. Remember that little flower that had like a little bobble it didn't stamp really well? Well, it's covered. It's hidden. So there we go. Now I want to add this to my card front so that it will cover that piece on the inside, but I want to make sure that my dimensionals don't overhang so that it sticks. So I'm going to slide this here so that I know where the top and bottom are. And I'm going to go ahead and put some dimensionals here, just so I kind of know where to put them so they don't go too high or too low. And then I'm just going to take off the covers and stack that up. I kind of almost like the blueberry bushel one better than the first one I did. Hold on. I'll show you both in 1 minute. So that is the panel. It's a little crooked. Hold on. Let me see if I can. Oh, I don't think I can fix it. There we go. That's the panel Z-fold. Again, these measurements for this card live in my inspiration library. It's available to email subscribers. All you have to do is sign up for the email and you will get access. There will be, at the end of today, there will be a total of 8 in there because I started doing it in January. So this is the first one I did. I did this for the swap at Onstage that I'm in. And then this is the one we just did tonight. So really very similar designs, but the different colors really just give it a whole different feel. And I feel like I need to add some bling, so I'll go back and add some bling. But what I'm most excited to share with you, and this is what's going to live in the inspiration library, is the 12 cards I made with the one sheet wonder. I love designer series paper. I hate wasting it. So when I saw this paper, I said, I need to do a one sheet wonder so that we can use every beautiful scrap of this garden poetry designer series paper. So here are the cards I made. So that's the first one. We're just letting that beautiful paper shine. Again, some fancy die cuts there, some different colors. Again, I did the stamp off. I stamped this in Berry Burst. That's the stamped off color of Berry Burst, and that's the stamped off color of Blueberry Bushel, but I think it works. Here's the other half of that. I cut this one in half on the diagonal, so this is the second half. Got a whole different card. I actually added this piece excuse me, to the basic white and then embossed them both. So the embossing shows on the basic white and on the designer series paper. Okay, again, 4 strips. I kind of took 2 and flipped them over to see the back side. And there is that beautiful printed paper. Again, very simple, not a lot to it, but I think it works. This is one of my favorites. I love this design. I took a blending brush and I kind of blended over the top after I embossed it. I kind of just put a little bit of that shaded spruce color on that white to just kind of give it a little bit more depth. Here's another one, completely different feel, right? I turned one square on the diagonal so it looks like a diamond, and then these are just squares, but that flirting flamingo and shaded spruce were colors in there. So I'm like, you know what? I think it will work. Again, here's another one, Berry Burst and Blueberry Bushel. I really like that combo, in case you haven't guessed. I just think it's a pretty combination. Okay, here's the thank you. Again, same, these are the same size. I just took them, I flipped it to the back side, and I just went to landscape mode as opposed to portrait mode. Okay, this was one 4x4 piece cut in on the diagonal. Again, creating that lovely little opening there to stamp. This is the February Product of the Month, Fabulous Sayings. I love the script. It is such a beautiful stamp set. Again, here we're just letting the designer series paper really take center stage with a very little sentiment, some twine, and a couple of those epoxy dots. This is one piece cut into 4 rectangles. 2 of them were flipped over again to show the back side. And then this was sort of a remaining piece, and we used it to create just a very simple little card. We used this shape to also cut out some other cardstock. One we embossed, and I put Wink of Stella on it. And this I just kind of used that little background stamp, just kind of stamped a random pattern to just kind of give it a little bit more visual interest. So these were the 12 cards I made from that one sheet wonder. I hope you like it. Like I said, it lives in my inspiration library. It's got the cut map. It's got all of the measurements. It will tell you, for like card number 1, this is what you need. Card number 2, this is what you need. So if you want to recreate these again, you have to access my inspiration library. That is for email subscribers, but it is all there for you if you would like to sign up. I'll put the link down below so you get the inspiration library and the information on this one sheet wonder with the cut map and all the instructions for all of the other layers that I use to create these cards. That's it for me, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you all next week. Bye.